welcome to another deep dive. Today we're going to be tackling something I think we all deal with, and
Yeah.
that's change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's funny, this whole topic was sparked by Merriam-Webster's word of the day,
Okay.
which happens to be labile.
Labile. Interesting.
Yeah, and so I, I know maybe you're thinking, oh, is this some like obscure chemistry term? But it actually connects to this idea of being open to change, maybe sometimes a little too open.
Right.
So, get ready because we're going to dive into some really cool questions about when to embrace change, when to maybe just like hold back a little bit, and how our own personal histories can like totally color how we see all this change that's always swirling around us.
I think it's fascinating how the material that we're looking at today, it goes beyond just saying, like, here's what change is.
Yeah.
It really delves into, like, the psychology of change.
Oh, totally.
And I think you're going to find some, like, light bulb moments in here.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. So, okay, let's unpack this. The source that we're looking at for this deep dive actually kicks things off with what seems like a pretty simple question. How do you feel about change?
Right.
But I don't know about you, but I feel like it's not always such a straightforward answer,
Yeah,
right?
right at all.
Like some days change feels really exciting, like a fresh start,
Yeah.
but then other times it can feel like, whoa, this is way too much, way too fast.
Yeah. I feel
And the source makes this really interesting point about this. Like they say that when we're facing a challenge that's totally new to us, something we haven't really encountered before, that often feels kind of exciting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, bring it on.
Yeah, you're like, what is this? This is cool.
Yeah.
But then when it's a challenge that feels super familiar, like something we've struggled with before, that's when we can start to feel like totally overwhelmed.
It's that, oof, not this again
Right.
feeling.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Yes, exactly.
For sure.
And it's because of that, like, that fear of repeating past failures,
Mhm.
that what if I mess this up again?
Yeah.
That can be such a roadblock to, like, really embracing change.
Yeah.
And our past experiences, especially the negative ones, they can really, like, color how we see what we're capable of doing right now.
So true. So true. But it's not all doom and gloom, though, right?
No, not at all.
Because I think this source also reminds us that sometimes looking at those old challenges with some fresh eyes, that can actually be the key to like succeeding this time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The key difference is, like, perspective.
Okay.
We've grown since then. We've learned from those past experiences. Maybe now we have the tools, the knowledge, or even just, like, the mental strength to approach that same challenge in a totally new way.
So willpower plays a big role in all this then, right?
Definitely.
Because the source argues that like ideally, if we really want something badly enough to like actually change for it, we should just go for it no matter how scary it might seem.
Yeah, but, easier said than done, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because it's important to, like, acknowledge that everyone's willpower is different, and how well we can see, like, those potential benefits of changing,
Yeah.
that can vary, like, a lot from person to person.
Right.
And this is where, like, motivation and how we make decisions comes into play. There's, like, a whole field of psychology that's just dedicated to figuring out how people make choices, especially when it comes to change.
Okay, tell me more.
Well, one model that's super relevant here is what's called the trans-theoretical model of change.
Okay.
And it breaks down, like, that whole process of changing into these different stages.
Okay.
And it starts with, like, pre-contemplation, where you're not even thinking about changing yet, all the
Yeah.
way to maintenance, where you've, like, successfully made that change a part of your life.
I see.
And this model helps us see that change isn't just like flipping a switch.
Right.
It's more like a dimmer switch with these gradual shifts happening over time.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, should I change or not?
Right.
It's also recognizing like, where am I in this whole process and what kind of support do I need to move forward?
Exactly. And understanding those different stages can make the whole thing feel a lot less overwhelming,
Yeah, I can see that. This actually makes me think of something else the source mentions about younger people.
Okay.
They talk about how younger people just seem less burdened by like that fear of failure that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
They suggest it's maybe because they just haven't had as many experiences yet where things didn't work out.
Right.
So they're less afraid to take risks, maybe.
Yeah, there's definitely some truth to that.
Yeah.
What the source is talking about here is this concept of risk tolerance.
Okay.
And it's basically just like, how comfortable are we with things being uncertain and the possibility of things not going how we planned?
Makes sense.
And risk tolerance is really influenced by our life experiences.
Okay.
Like, the more we've been through, the more all those experiences, good and bad, shape how willing we are to, like, jump into something new, especially if it reminds us of past struggles.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, where do you think you fall on that spectrum?
Hmm. That's a good question.
Yeah. Are you at a point where you feel like embracing change is like super important?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you maybe looking for a little bit more stability right now?
Yeah,
It's definitely something to think about as we continue this deep dive.
for sure. It's funny you mention risk tolerance because the source actually tells this really interesting story about taking a new job right after college
Oh, yeah.
in another state.
Yeah, that stood out to me too.
Talk about a huge life change.
Oh, totally. I mean, starting a new job is already like a lot.
Yeah,
But then you add on moving to a whole new place where you don't know anyone. It
exactly.
takes like a whole other level of readiness for change, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Like they talk about how there were just so many unknowns, right? So
Right.
many things felt unsteady, but they also describe this feeling of like just knowing in their gut that it was the right move to grow.
It's like that feeling of just knowing, right? Like you just have to make the change,
Yeah.
even if it's a little scary. It's almost like trusting your intuition to lead you in the right direction.
It's like taking a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a pretty common theme in a lot of like personal transformation stories.
Yeah.
Like getting outside your comfort zone, embracing those what if moments.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the good stuff happens.
That's what the magic is.
Yeah.
So how do we find that balance, though, between knowing when to take that leap and when to, like, just hold back a little bit?
Right?
I feel like that can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah, it definitely can be.
Well, the source talks about this. They say that reflection is so important.
Okay.
So taking the time to really look back on, like, your experiences and what's worked and what hasn't,
Right.
and then using those insights to make adjustments going forward.
I love that. It's such a powerful thing to do.
Yeah.
When we actually take the time to reflect on what we've been through,
Mm-hmm.
we can start to see patterns.
Yeah.
Like things that like consistently make us happy.
Yeah.
Things that totally drain our energy. Right.
Situations that make us feel like, ugh, not this again.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can use that, like that awareness of ourselves, to make better choices about how we approach change in the future.
It's like we become detectives of our own lives.
I love that.
Yeah, trying to figure out the clues to what makes us tick.
Exactly.
And that detective work, that's so important for being able to handle change, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
This makes me think about relationships, too.
Okay.
Because change in relationships can be kind of complicated, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The source mentions that they really value consistency in their relationships,
Mm-hmm.
but they also want to have some spontaneity.
Of course.
So it's that classic dilemma of like, how much routine do we need versus how much excitement do we need?
it's so relatable.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it comes down to communication
Mm-hmm.
and being willing to compromise too.
Yeah.
Because, different people have different needs when it comes to stability and spontaneity.
Yeah, for sure. Some people just thrive on like always having new experiences,
Right.
while others are like most comfortable when they have a routine.
Totally.
So figuring out where you and like your partner are on that, spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
it can be really helpful in making sure everyone's needs are met.
It's like you have to figure out your change compatibility, I guess.
Exactly.
Okay.
And actually, the source gives us this really relatable example of a recent change that they made personally.
Okay.
They decided to get a gym membership
Oh,
to get back into a routine after they felt like they were in kind of a slump.
I felt that.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there at some point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Sometimes we just need that structure,
Yeah.
that accountability to help us get back on track.
Totally.
Especially when it comes to like fitness or health.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you just need that little push,
That little nudge in the right direction.
Yes, exactly.
But I think what's really inspiring about this story is that the source sees that, like, reinvention is always a possibility.
I love that.
Yeah, they share how when they were a kid, they had trouble with their weight
Okay.
and they never thought they could be a fit person.
Wow.
But they found activities that they actually enjoyed doing
Mm,
and figured out how to make them a part of their life.
yeah,
And they were able to get to a level of fitness they never thought was possible.
that's awesome.
And it just shows how powerful it can be to change your mindset
Right.
and challenge those limiting beliefs we sometimes have about ourselves.
It shows that change isn't just about stuff happening around us,
Right.
but it's also about those internal changes.
Absolutely.
Like how we see ourselves and what we think we can do.
And that's where, like, the idea of a growth mindset comes in. It's that belief that our abilities and our intelligence aren't fixed.
Okay.
They can grow and develop if we put in the effort and use the right strategies.
I like that.
Having a growth mindset helps us approach challenges with like curiosity and a sense of what if,
Mm.
instead of being scared or thinking we can't do it.
Hmm.
And that change in perspective is really powerful when it comes to like embracing change and reaching our
Yeah,
goals.
it's like trading in I can't for I'm willing to try.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that willingness to try, to experiment, to
Mm.
learn from our experiences.
Yeah,
That's really at the core of like personal growth and transformation.
absolutely. So even though we're like really exploring this idea of embracing change,
Right.
the source also points out something that's always stayed the same for them,
Okay.
which is their core value of treating other people how they want to be treated.
That's such an important principle
Mm.
that goes beyond like cultural differences and
Mm.
even time. It's
Yeah.
about empathy,
Yeah,
recognizing that shared humanity that connects us all.
for sure.
And it's a powerful reminder that even in a world where it feels like things are always changing,
Right.
where change is constant,
Yeah,
we can always try to treat each other with kindness and understanding.
it's like this grounding force amidst all the change.
Totally. It really is. And you know what else? She offers this insightful perspective on when to really embrace change.
Oh yeah, when you just know you got to say yes.
Exactly like when you should dive in head first.
Okay, tell me more.
Basically, she says, if a change is going to benefit you and it won't hurt anyone else, just go for it, especially if it's like a really big life change, you know?
But it's got to be a big change, not just like any change.
Right. It's about recognizing those moments that can shift things in a positive way. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
And what's interesting is she's talking about those real internal changes,
Mm-hmm.
not just the external surface level stuff.
Right.
So it's not about like winning the lottery or something. It's
Yeah.
about change that comes from inside you,
Okay.
like learning a new skill
Right.
or challenging yourself to grow, you
Mhm.
know? So it's like actively participating in how we evolve instead of just letting life happen. Exactly like we're taking control of our own development and making choices that line up with what we value and what we want to achieve.
Right.
And to do that, we have to think about the risks and the benefits of any big change that we're thinking about.
It's like that saying, look before you leap, but don't forget about the excitement of the leap, you know?
That's a great way to put it.
So I think we've covered so much in this deep dive about how to navigate change in our own lives.
Yeah, we've talked about how change can feel like a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about how our past experiences and how comfortable we are with risk play a role,
Yeah.
and how important it is to look back on our experiences and learn from them.
Right.
And of course, we talked about how to develop a growth mindset.
And even though change can be hard sometimes,
Definitely.
it's also a really amazing opportunity to grow and transform ourselves.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up today, here's one last question for you to think about. We've talked a lot about external changes like new jobs, relationships, or habits. But what about those changes that happen on the inside?
Oh, that's interesting.
Like when your perspective or your beliefs change.
Mm-hmm.
Think about a time when a change in how you thought about something led to some big changes in your life.
Yeah, that's a good one.
What happened? We'd love to hear your thoughts on this, so feel free to share your experiences with us on social media.
After all, this journey of embracing change is a personal one,
Yeah.
and I think we can all learn a lot from each other's stories.
And we hope this deep dive has given you some new insights and tools to navigate change with a little more confidence and a lot more excitement.
Definitely.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and keep embracing the amazing journey of change.